this figurehead who really kind of, my mom, did an amazing job with the ICPA, and she took it from approximately 500 members to over 6,000 members.
Genesis Nation, welcome again. I am super excited to have Dr. Justin Ohm with us with the ICPA, International Chiropractic Pediatric Association. And you've got a long history in chiropractic. And I'd love to learn about your personal history as a chiropractor and the larger vision that you were carrying with the ICPA and where that came from. So why don't we start with your personal history?
Sure. Well, I'm a second generation chiropractor. So I kind of grew up with it. My parents had a home office, so I really kind of grew up with it. And, we're making too much noise back in the house portion of the house. My mom would come, I'm with the new patient. What are you doing? Which is funny because years and years later, when my mom was mostly kind of transitioned out of practice and I was in practice, and they'd be arguing in the kitchen and I'm with new patient. You're too loud, So kind of the tables turned a little bit there over time. But grew up, in a home with a home office going on, family practice. And I guess when I was a teenager at some point, the ICPA kind of moved to my house. So the ICPA, the International Chiropractic Pediatric Association, was founded by Dr. Larry Webster in 1986. And it was really in response to some laws, actually specifically a law up in Connecticut that was looking to limit access of patients under the age of 12 to chiropractors.
Wow.
And this was kind of, almost an attack from within. But Larry identified this and said, this law states unless you're certified in pediatrics, you're not going to be able to see potentially, if this law passes, kids under 12. Well, obviously this was unacceptable. So, he set out to make a certification, so he founded the ICPA and kind of built up this postgraduate education program. And that was a way for him to, kind of validate pediatric chiropractic. A lot of chiropractors graduate and they fall into family practice. It's very rewarding and nothing wrong with that. But creating that validation brought it to a new level and, an appreciation and acceptance, if you will. So that was the idea with the formation of the ICPA. Unfortunately, Larry passed, far too early in the late 90s. And the ICPA kind of, went for a year or two there without kind of Connie, his wife, took over and offered direction, formed the board, really kind of created the entity that could kind of live on. And then my mom was able to kind of step in as the new director. And so the ICPA literally kind of moved to my house, to a bedroom in my house, the house that I was growing up in. And so the ICPA was like very part of our, my life, my siblings' lives growing up, which was great. I remember my 30th birthday party was a surprise birthday party. And I walk in and, there's some friends and family and stuff there, but there's also the ICPA board because it happened to be a board meeting weekend, so, a lot of those figures are very close mentors of mine. And so in 2019, when my mom passed, and ICPA was kind of, okay, where do we go from here? How do we kind of live beyond this figurehead who really kind of, my mom, did an amazing job with the ICPA. And she took it from approximately 500 members to over 6,000 members.
Wow.
In a matter of about, 15, 20 years. So she 10x'd it. And that was really kind of a wonderful thing to see in terms of the growth, of that organization. But then we were at a point where it's like, how do we kind of continue on without that figurehead? And the board asked me, I stepped into that role. I kind of knew this. I know the staff of the ICPA. Again, the ICPA headquarters is located at our home office. So it's like, I'm very intertwined with everyone there. I know the board, I know, the instructors. And we kind of kicked it off and said, okay, this is going to be challenging, because a figurehead kind of, if an organization's built strictly around a figurehead, it's difficult to break out of that. But I think we can do this, and we have enough passion and motivation from our instructors and from our board and from our supporters and our members. And then COVID happened,
Mm,
and the business model of in-person seminars was
changed.
shattered.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
shattered.
all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And, not, I mean, I think chiropractors were very open to kind of still meeting in person in a lot of circumstances. And certain states would allow it and other states would not allow it. Anyway, we had to, pivot. It was kind of an interesting little fact is about a year before that, before my mom passed, she started recording all of the ICPA courses, professionally recording them, and she asked my opinion about that. Oh, what do you think about, recording classes? It'll let all of the other ICPA instructors take each other's classes and really create congruency between the program. I said, oh, that's nice and all, it's kind of expensive just for, our 20 or so instructors to be able to get that congruence. Are you sure this is worth it? And she's like, something's telling me
Yeah,
it's worth it.
yeah, yeah, she knew before. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
So now,
Yes.
um, I had the privilege of being at the, your conference recently. Not sure when this will post, but and really, it was such a cool experience for me to see the leaders through the ICPA, including yourself, and just the way that you're approaching the profession is very empathic and compassionate, caring, and it seemed like I go to seminars all over the country because of what I do with Genesis, and it seemed like there was just a group of happier people, more joyful people. So it was really
Mm.
nice to see that. So what do you attribute that to?
I think ICPA, the organization, is kind of really an extended family, so to speak, and that's the way it was grown. Was really kind of from and again, my mom was kind of like, she was mom to a lot of people
Mhm.
in that sense, and she kind of grew this, and she was very fiercely, from a motherly kind of standpoint, fiercely protective of her members. Whereas a lot of organizations, you know, the whole point of having a large membership base is to advertise to them or sell the email list or do all this other kind of, side stuff. That was never tolerated. Do you know what I mean? It was always kind of this like, no, you're here for pediatric and family chiropractic, for pregnancy care, for Webster certification. This is a passion that runs deep, I think, in a lot of chiropractors, but especially in ICPA chiropractors. This desire to create practices that are proficient and capable of taking care of families, building that confidence. You come out of school and you're saying, okay, I guess I'll figure it out,
Yeah,
because school prepares you
someone
in some ways, but
goes like
not
this,
others.
and they hand you their child, and like, and you got to either figure it out or
Yeah.
go get some training quickly.
Or go get some training. Yeah. And that's a no shit moment. And I mean, if you have your own kids and you have some, experience and, comfort with that, but otherwise it's like, oh boy,
Yeah,
I better figure out how to take care of this, especially if that's the direction you want to go,
right.
in practice. So, I mean, and that's kind of the idea with, I think we really share that rewarding style of practice because it is rewarding. It's not just rewarding because you're able to help these kids, but it's rewarding because like it's different. It
Yeah,
just hits different when you look in the eyes of a baby and that baby looks back at you, and you're adjusting that child and they go from tense and contorted to relaxed and melting in your hands. It's like,
that's magic right there.
oh
That's
my God, it's an adjustment for the
I
chiropractor.
was gonna say that's primal. That's human nature, and
Yes.
it's a beautiful thing that
Yeah.
we get to do that as chiropractors, and that you're actually fostering the ability for more chiropractors to do that. So, can you tell me a little bit more, or tell us, Genesis Nation, more about some of the offerings? And of course, I don't need a detail. Obviously, we can go online, but
Sure.
what are the things that you're most proud of that you're offering as techniques or approaches working with pediatrics and pregnancy as well, maternity?
Right. Well, I mean, certainly the most well known, both in the profession and the kind of the really uh, interesting and awesome part about it is that Webster certification is really becoming well known, ubiquitous almost outside of the profession, and that's a testament to a lot of people. But, but I'll give the example of my mother because, I saw this. She would teach the Webster certification course, and train chiropractors. And we estimated, after she had passed, she probably trained, over 10,000 chiropractors in that technique.
That's cool.
And that was a tough thing because she loved practice. And
Mhm.
this pulled her away from being in practice, that rewarding, kind of picking up a baby style thing. But her mission with that is, if I can light a fire in hundreds, thousands, 10,000 chiropractors across the country, across the world to be doing this type of work, imagine the impact that we can have,
Yeah.
right? But beyond just teaching the technique, she was speaking at midwifery conferences, at doula conferences, at breastfeeding conferences, and creating an awareness amongst these other practitioners who are really kind of very much congruent with the chiropractic philosophy
Yes.
about the Webster technique. Make sure you get your moms in before something's wrong. This is not a breech turning technique. This is the technique that can help offer balance throughout pregnancy.
Yeah.
And you create that support, you create that balance, you create an easier, more gentle, safer birth process. And by doing that, there's less impact to that brand new baby spine if they're, compared to, let's say, kind of a very typical scenario is an assisted delivery. The head comes out and there's tremendous amount of tractional forces that happen just because of the position of the mother, the environment that she's in, and the training of the attending physician, very likely.
Mm.
So if we can go into that process with a pelvis that's, as balanced as possible and as connected as possible, in that mother's nervous system, you're creating an environment for an easier, more gentle birth. And then that reduces the impact on that infant spine. So now when you're seeing that newborn, you're not fixing overt torticollis or, tension and restriction in the spine that's like, oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
visible, imbalance, but you just kind of glide right into wellness,
Mm.
and this child just needs to kind of be supported throughout their maturation. And that tends to happen, I think, very genuinely and very naturally in that environment, because that mother who just experienced the benefit of chiropractic care throughout pregnancy. See, pregnancy is, like, in my opinion, maybe the perfect example of adaptation, right? The body's going through this kind of miraculous adaptation. And that's what chiropractic does. If we want to use plain terms, if we're, if you're trying to teach your patients, the term subluxation and what that means, and if you're using that as a motivation or a scare tactic to, like, let's get adjusted to avoid this thing or to prevent this from getting worse, like, that's not my approach. And I don't think that's the approach of a lot of ICPA chiropractors. It's no, we're not looking at it from the perspective of what are we trying to fix, even if that thing is, the very quintessential chiropractic subluxation. It is instead kind of looking in the other direction and saying, what can we support in this system,
Yeah.
in this body?
Yeah.
And that shift in focus is really shifting from a more pathogenic mindset. You can be as straight as as they come, focused on the subluxation. You can be pathogenic. Or you can shift your attention over here and say, okay, how do we support this nervous system to be more adaptable? And when you use that terminology and that mom kind of experiences that throughout pregnancy, you see what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
Huge.
why would, can I get this increased adaptability for my newborn?
Well,
Don't
I
they
think
need
these
that too?
distinctions, Justin, are super helpful for any type of chiropractor, I believe, because you're not creating a confusing barrier with, and no offense to subluxation, because you put five chiropractors in the room, they're going to define it differently. So
Yeah.
that creates a really clear platform to work with anybody. And you've done so much work, and I've seen the trends also with many chiropractors in your organization working with doulas and birth coaches and things like that. And it's amazing. I also just want to bring to light, you may not have seen it this way, but you have like this systems thinking. The system is much greater than the parts, and you're creating that for each individual patient that you're treating in this approach, as well as how the ICPA as an organization is working as a system. And it's all intertwined. It's beautiful stuff, man. I really just
Yeah,
appreciate
that's
your
cool.
that approach, man. You blew my doors off. So I'm hoping that our listeners really get that same feeling and provide support for the ICPA, because this is changing not just the profession, this is changing humanity. I see it as a really important drive, man. So right
Well,
on.
I'll pivot that call to action and just say, we want to support you. Becoming a member of the ICPA is less about getting more support throughout the profession. I mean, we're pretty big. I mean, we have over 8,500 members at this point. And I don't know of other chiropractic organizations that are so forthright with their membership numbers. But joining the ICPA it's about us supporting you in that mission to establish and advance, chiropractic family wellness lifestyle. And that is that shift, right? The chiropractic family wellness lifestyle is that shift from a patient coming in, a family coming in with that more pathogenic mindset. Because how could they not have that?
Yeah,
We're
it's
so bombarded with that, right?
yes.
You know what I mean? We're raised with that, and then a select few will perhaps find the ability to say, oh, instead of these more allopathic treatments, I'm starting to resonate with these more holistic treatments, and they're doing homeopathy and acupuncture and obviously chiropractic, but their mind is still thinking of all of this as a treatment,
Yeah.
right? But when they can shift, and I think this happens, and that intangible, that systems kind of approach that you mentioned, it's more than just the adjustment, guys.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's how you're interacting with them. Are you fostering trust? Are you creating that encouragement that their body knows what it's doing with these adaptations? That even a symptomatic adaptation that you would, label a disease or a condition or what have you, is probably very intelligent and on purpose.
Yeah.
And their body's trying to adapt to a circumstance that, and maybe it's running into a roadblock and you're experiencing a symptom. But that doesn't mean, we want to use the adjustment as an all natural, Tylenol.
Right.
You know what
Right.
I mean? It's like
Yeah,
we're,
these are really important distinctions. I'm really
it's a
appreciating.
subtlety. It's a really subtle, kind of thing, but bringing them from here to over here, that's the transition. That's the chiropractic family wellness lifestyle. And that's rewarding, to see, because you've changed now the trajectory of that family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes. And
They're going to approach health
there's
decisions
epigenetic
differently.
and genetic expression that changes because of your
100%.
yeah, and I it brings to me the word intra-connected, meaning
Mm.
I'm looking at what's
Oh, yeah.
happening inside of me as the chiropractor. I'm looking at what's happening inside of you as the patient, quote unquote, and the connection that we have together, as well as what we're doing for society and the planet. So
Yes.
it's a term that's come new to me, but it really makes sense here. Awesome distinctions, man. Because I came from I had my pediatric training through um, Dr. Jennifer Pete with and from a CBP perspective when I was practicing a long time ago, and I'm not sure if she's still teaching. I hope she is, and I think she was involved with the ICPA. I would love to see if she still is. We may have to just connect her on this
Yeah.
phenomenal teacher. And so for those who want to participate, we'll put the information below. That's the easy part. But what does it look like to be a member? Are there access to online courses, or do you have live webinars or seminars? How does that work?
We have a number of different certifications, that people can kind of, make their way through those certification processes. Like I said, Webster certification's the most popular and well known. So a lot of people start with that, and that creates that kind of foundation of perinatal based care. But then we have, I guess maybe 7 other classes in the perinatal certification. So if pregnancy care is your thing, and the Webster class and that certification lights that fire under you. Oh my gosh, I want to take care of pregnant moms because this is going to change the trajectory and the epigenetics of that baby who's getting born. And this happens all the time. Like that's what lights a lot of people on fire. That's what lit my mom on fire.
Yeah,
When she learned Webster from Larry Webster.
yeah, that's cool.
And here she was, practicing in a family practice already, seeing tons of kids, seeing pregnant moms, and she gets this old flyer in the mail in the mid 90s, early 90s. And my dad's like, "What are you going to go?" And we already have a family practice,
Yeah.
and she said, "Oh, something's telling me to go take this," and she took that, and it really kind of lit her on fire. So I think a lot of people get that inspiration and that motivation with that. And so then you can go through and you can do the perinatal certification. That's 8 classes, about 80 hours of content. And then if you wanted to go farther, you can do the pediatric certification. That's 200 hours
Wow.
of class time. And then beyond that is the diplomate program, and that's like, okay, once you're pediatric and perinatal certified, you can apply for the diplomate status, and there's a number of requirements, and it's really all designed to create your resume as as kind of an advanced trained doctor at that point.
Love
So
it.
you're by the end of that process, you're published with a research journal. You're published in the Pathways magazine, which that's the public outreach arm of the ICPA, Pathways to Family Wellness magazine. And that's an excellent magazine to just get the chiropractic message out there
Yeah.
without it being kind of completely under the umbrella of chiropractic. So in other words, it breaks out of that box, and there's birth articles and there's natural learning articles, but it all kind of
It's
ties
a great
back in.
marketing tool to keep in your lobby versus the
Oh,
typical
it's that, yeah,
magazines that are inundating us with pharmaceutical and pathological or pathogenesis thinking. So, um,
100%. And that was actually the motivation. My
yeah,
mom's like, "I'm sick of having these magazines, even National Geographic or whatever, and there's all these drug ads.
yes.
She's like, I can't have this anymore." So she made her own magazine, and kind of started Pathways in that way. So
I
anyway, but
really want
that's the
to honor,
idea.
sorry, I just want to drop in, like, I really want to honor your mom's attention to her intuition. And hopefully, and I'm sure just by meeting you briefly, it seems to have passed through to someone who can actually pay attention to their intuition. And because if she didn't, we wouldn't be having this call right now, which is great. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, for
thank
sure.
you for what you're doing. I like, as a practitioner, I don't practice anymore, and I am a champion of the profession to help chiropractic grow through, through our organization with Genesis. I'm really excited to be involved and help you grow, and also just, provide more and more impact, not just in the profession, but in society all around. So, Genesis Nation listeners, please tune in, get your memberships, and more importantly, I think, even if if you don't want to treat children and pregnant and maternity, know where to refer them to someone who has certifications through ICPA. Any finishing stuff you'd like to offer our audience, or anything at all?
No, I think, well, I just want to say thank you to any of the ICPA members that are out there. And if family care and taking care of kids, and if this idea of kind of being more salutogenic, mindset, rather than pathogenic, if that appeals to you, it's a really rewarding way to practice. And I think that's the key differentiator for the ICPA, is that we are a salutogenic organization. We're focused on that kind of, how do we add health? How do we add, adaptability? And I think there's just this undercurrent, and people aren't applying the term salutogenesis to it, but you look at all of the, kind of the biohacking movement that's going on right
Yeah,
now, ice
hallucinogenic.
plunges, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's salutogenic. I
yeah,
mean, people are looking, how do I add adaptability? How do I increase my body's capacity to function? It's
yeah.
not about treatment. You're not doing a cold shower to treat something. You're doing it to add something to the system. And I think salutogenic chiropractic just has such a place in that future. And anyway, so that's the idea with the ICPA, and I hope it resonates with people.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for your sharing and your conviction and what you're doing out there. Appreciate you, man. Thanks.
Thanks so much for having me on.